Diablo is one of the most acclaimed RPGs of all time, and one of the best games from Blizzard. But actually, it's not a Blizzard game at all. Wait, what? Hey guys, it's Harry. I've been a game designer and producer for the past 11 years, and in this episode I'll give you a brief history of Diablo, one of the best RPG franchises of all time and a very influential game to me. Many of Diablo's design decisions and lore I consider to be the best in the craft. So stick around if you want to know everything about Diablo. Oh, and leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments which Diablo game was the first that you ever tried in your life. For me, it was definitely this one, the original Diablo, released in 1997. Actually, the original creators of Diablo are not Blizzard developers, but David Brevik, Eric Schaefer, and Max Schaefer, developers at Condor Games, the studio that would become Blizzard North. Diablo was pretty much David's dream project since his early teens. Brevik was a big Dungeons & Dragons fan and loved computer games like Rogue. What we call today roguelike is actually a category of games that initially resembled Rogue, published in early 1980s. Brevik's favorite game of the genre was Unbound, a dungeon crawler roguelike inspired by Lord of the Rings. Unbound in Tolkien's writings was Morgoth's fortress, kinda like Mordor is to Sauron. The main element in all of these games was the procedural dungeons, generated via an algorithm that would create a unique dungeon every time you played. And that would become one of the main selling points for Diablo, which by the way had its name due to Mount Diablo in the San Francisco Bay Area, close to where Brevik lived. David and his team were pitching Diablo to dozens of publishers that would refuse to fund the project. Can you believe that? 20 plus publishers turning down the opportunity to develop and release what would become a global hit several times over. But history is history, and at that time RPGs were not selling very well, and consoles like the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo were dominating the market, while Diablo was set to be a PC-only title. But then Condor met Blizzard at the Consumer Electronics Show in 1994. It turned out that both Blizzard and Condor were hired to develop the same game at the same time, Justice League Task Force, but for different platforms, Condor for the Sega Genesis and Blizzard for the Super Nintendo. The teams hadn't previously shared any assets or information with each other. They didn't even know another team was working on the same game. Because remember, back in the day, if a company wanted their game published for different platforms, they pretty much needed to build the game twice. It was nothing like today where affordable or free software like Unreal Engine or Unity can publish your game to several different platforms with just a couple of clicks. Curiously enough, when Condor and Blizzard saw each other's work, it was super similar. Same design philosophy, graphic style, and gameplay. So both teams got along immediately and would develop a deep relationship over time, but not without its ups and downs. Brevik and his team were having a hard time finding publishers because most of them were not gamers at heart, something that was unfortunately true then as it is today. But that's why Blizzard caught so much of Brevik's attention. Alan Adam, CEO at Blizzard, along with pretty much everybody at Blizzard, they were true gamers, and that's why they understood Brevik's philosophy and ambitions. And if we're talking about design philosophy, believe it or not, Diablo was initially envisioned to be a turn-based game, just like Unbound. Yes, fun to imagine how that could have turned out. And Brevik felt very strongly about that because of his previous experience playing turn-based games and roguelikes. But Blizzard had been recently successful in creating their real-time strategy Warcraft. So after a lot of back and forth, they decided to develop Diablo as a real-time game, and that changed everything. Diablo would go on to become a quintessential RPG for the 1990s and beyond. And not only that, an action RPG, which was quite a novelty at the time. And also, another design decision that would have a major impact in the franchise over the years was to implement multiplayer capability. Once again, that wasn't in Brevik's initial plans, but Blizzard insisted on having Diablo connected to their new Battle.net system. Well, we have to admit that Adam and his team knew what they're doing, because that would be a masterful decision, not only for the original Diablo, but especially for its sequels. That was a decision that the whole Blizzard team carried as a core design pillar, and it would prove itself many times over on all of Blizzard's games. So in Diablo, you can create your own character and play as a warrior, rogue, or sorcerer, descending into the Hellish dungeons in the outskirts of Tristram, the iconic town of the franchise. Funny thing is that the whole motto for Diablo would be to get the player immediately in the middle of action. Up until then, most RPGs require you to spend a lot of time in a convoluted character creation process, choosing your class, spending attribute points, getting skills and spells, and listening to a lot of backstory. All of that even before moving your character around. Diablo would get rid of all of it, and within the minute, you could be starting the game and slaying your first few demons. But the game still had a good amount of complexity and development choices, especially playing with your character progression to create your own particular build, and it would be a central point of community discussion all around the internet. Even though it wasn't a focal point initially, the story of Diablo would go on to become a deeply developed narrative across the franchise. And even from this first game, the snippets of stories and quests that you get are already very well presented and intriguing, leaving room for a much richer story soon to come. And the town of Tristram and its inhabitants, even though few, would become iconic characters, like Griswold, the blacksmith where you can buy new gear or repair your own, Adria, the witch that would be the main partner for your sorcerer, selling potions and spell books, and of course, Deckard Cain, probably the most recognized character of the series, apart from Diablo itself. And from Brevik's original vision, Diablo would have another central point, collecting loot. From his point of view, grabbing some very cool loot was a central part to his tabletop experience with Dungeons and Dragons, so he would make it core to Diablo. There's always the thrill around the corner to have the next monster or chest drop the best loot of your life. That was a good part of what made Diablo so immersive, that even the Blizzard developers could not stop playing it while trying to solve the bugs that needed to be fixed for release. Diablo was set to release in the Christmas of 1996, but because of the myriad of bugs and issues still present in the game, even though the team was working the longest hours for months to solve them all, it missed the mark. Diablo would not ship before the holidays. That was a big hit to the executives. In those days, if you missed all of the promotion and extra space on the shelf of the stores, that could break the entire sales of your game. Or so they thought. Diablo ended up technically shipping right before the end of the year, but it was only massively distributed on the stores in January 1977. And it hit big. Critics could not say enough good things about it. Best game of the year, they said. And that taught a very important lesson to the team. Not everything was about going on sale on a specific date. If you have a great game, people will still come, they will still buy it. From that realization, Blizzard crafted a statement that they would be known for. A game is ready when it's ready. Diablo went on to create an entire subgenre of its own. Not only its sequels, which we'll talk about in future videos, but a whole class of games that utilized most of Diablo's components. A top-down camera view, different character classes, procedural dungeons, heavy focus on loot and character progression, and so much more. One of the most successful Diablo-like games today is Path of Exile, another fan favorite in the genre. We cannot overstate Diablo's importance for the PC gaming history and gaming in general, but nothing survives in isolation, as we well know, and if you've watched our episode number 1 of A Brief History of Video Games, you know that one of the most iconic parts of Diablo's interface, the red and blue potions to signify health and mana, actually came directly from Ultima Underworld, which was the first game to utilize this concept. So that's the beauty of gaming history. One game is always inspired by its predecessors to create and reinforce innovation. Many things that we take for granted today are actually a process of borrowing concepts from games that came before you. That's it for this episode. Diablo 1 remains one of my favorite RPGs of all time. It's down to business, but at the same time, it has an incredible amount of depth. No wonder why people keep playing Diablo over and over along the years. Not only Diablo 1, but especially its sequels. The biggest one probably being Diablo 2. But that's another video. Let me know in the comments below if you want a Diablo 2 video here, and I'll be very thrilled to make it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, it means a lot to me. Take care, and I'll catch you guys next time.